Kita kasih ini, kita kasih spektra laser tadi yang muncul ya. Ada video diblokir 5 Februari. Ini supaya yang di TikTok juga masuk ya. Ini suara bergema karena itu apa namanya, ruangannya emang belum ada treatment akustik. Oke, udah masuk ya. Bisa, bagus ya, koneksinya bagus. Tes. Oh enggak, agak delay ya. Terus delaynya cukup panjang, tapi enggak apa, ini udah monitor 3. Oke, scene 1 ini scene-nya voice meter. Kalau mau ngomongin voice meter di monitor 2, ini monitor utamanya, ini monitor 3 yang buat streaming ke TikTok. Ini ruangan, kamera ruangan, ini kamera depan ya, muka ini. Ada lagi satu kamera lagi yang dari sebelah sini. Oke, masuk. Brika nggak kepasang ya, brika nggak pasang, kemudian threadcam juga udah tak siapin. Oke, sini masuk ya, boy. Dia pakai expander ya. Lumayan pakai expander di posisi 20 ya. Kira-kira begitu. Mic-nya ini tak ganti supaya mic tak ganti. Ini mic-nya pakai penak ini banget ya. Ada mic-nya enakan pakai agak ini ya, rocker ya, rocker AK47 ini. Suaranya banter. Nah, cuma dia agak nyumpel kuping ya. Bentar, ini monitornya coba tak kontrol monitornya ya. Lewat A1. Oh, ini bisa lewat A1. A5 bisa, A5 bisa, A1. Oke. Sama kan suaranya kan? Suaranya kan sama kan? 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. Ya, pakai angka 47. Monitornya. Banter nggak ya? Monitornya banter kan? Oke, lumayan. Satunya termasuk kecil ya. Ada back sound ya. Lagi apa gitu? Jaga voice meter. Ya harusnya sedikit kecil dia. Kalau terlalu banter kalah suaranya. Ya kalau pakai headset memang nggak bisa kedengaran banget ya. Selamat siang. Masih belum bisa ngilangin ini ya, suara echo-nya itu. Jadi mestinya itu dilarikan ke mana ya? Ke monitornya mestinya di A1 ya. Jadi supaya nggak ada gemanya itu loh. S 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Ini A1-nya nggak ke copy. Nggak kedengaran. Oh iya, nih monitornya jangan di sini. Monitornya ada di sini ya, dilarikan ke virtual cable aja. Berarti yang di A nya juga gitu, pengirinya lewat virtual cable. Itu ya 1, 2, 3. Kemudian posisi proyeksi ini benar ya, udah benar. Proyeksinya ini di 2 gitu ya. Jam 2. Di monitor 2, kemudian aku mau coba kontrolnya di monitor 2. Ini kadang-kadang lupa kalau nggak dikontrol gini, aku ada di monitor berapa di kaca. Oke, lihat tadi cek ke playlist ya. OBS-nya di mana? OBS browser Chrome properties. Gak normal dia. Okay.
Set this to canvas instead. It can be super useful. Over in OBS, we can right-click some blank space, go to preview scaling, and we'll set this to canvas.
Oh, dengerin
Punches in. This is to let you know you're now in canvas mode.
Dengerin.
Hold down the space bar, you'll notice that the cursor goes from a pointer to a hand. This means that now when we scroll up and down with our mouse wheel, we're zooming in and out of the canvas.
Jelasan dari
So
OBS ya.
click to drag around and see different parts of the canvas as you need to. What we're going to do here though is zoom out a little bit and show a real-world example of how you might use this. So I'm going to right-click down here. I'm going to add a source. I'm going to add the scene of my webcam reference scene. Once we press OK, we're going to drag our webcam beneath the webcam frame. And at this point, to put your webcam in the webcam frame, what a lot of people would do is they'd sort of put it in approximately the right position and then just sort of resize and just
Jadi mengenai itu,
see what works, see what doesn't work, and just aim as best they can.
fitur OBS yang mungkin kita belum tahu ya.
So I'm going to hold the spacebar and just scroll in a little bit. Then I'm going to resize myself to something like that. And then holding the Alt key on my keyboard, I can trim the source so I'm fitting exactly within the webcam frame. Once we've resized and cropped according to our needs, what we can do is turn off our gameplay scene here, and you'll see if we look around the edges very, very closely, there's no bleed over, there's no spill, my webcam is fitting precisely within the webcam frame. As you can see, using the canvas scaling mode is incredibly helpful for when you need to put something in just the right position, really precisely. For feature number 2, have you ever found yourself lost in the labyrinth of OBS settings and menus, wondering if there's more to this powerhouse than meets the eye? OBS has to be the premier tool to get streamers online. Let's face it, the interface ain't that friendly. If you've stumbled across this video, then congratulations, you're about to up your streaming game. My name's Danny, and I stream over on twitch.tv/DannyVals. Now, if you're anything like me, you've probably caught yourself wondering at some point, how am I making the most of OBS? What can it do that I don't know about? Is there a YouTube video out there somewhere that can show me more cool things about OBS, featuring a ridiculously handsome long-haired gentleman? Well, I have for you not one, not two, but 9 things that OBS can do that you probably didn't know about. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future tips and tricks, because I'm putting out videos like this all the time. And if you press that like button, it made me a very happy YouTube. So let's kick things off with a little feature that is really, really handy for pixel perfect placement of sources. This is preview scaling. Now by default, your preview scaling is going to be set to scale to window, but if we set this to canvas instead, it can be super useful. Over in OBS, we can right click some blank space, go to preview scaling, and we'll set this to canvas. When we do a sort of punches in, this is to let you know you're now in canvas mode. So if we hold down the spacebar, you'll notice that the cursor goes from a pointer to a hand. This means that now when we scroll up and down that mouse wheel, we're zooming in and out of the canvas. You can also hold left click to drag around and see different parts of the canvas as you need to. What we're going to do here though is zoom out a little bit and show a real world example of how you might use this. So I'm going to right click down here, I'm going to add a source, I'm going to add the scene of my webcam reference scene. Once we press OK, we're going to drag our webcam beneath the webcam frame. And at this point, to put your webcam in the webcam frame, what a lot of people would do is they'd sort of put it in approximately the right position, and then just sort of resize, just kind of eyeball it, see what works, see what doesn't work, just aim as best they can. A better way of doing this would be to use the canvas preview scaling mode. So I'm going to hold the spacebar and just scroll in a little bit. Then I'm going to resize myself to something like that, and then holding the Alt key on my keyboard, I can trim the source so I'm fitting exactly within the webcam frame. Once we've resized and cropped according to our needs, what we can do is turn off our gameplay scene here, and you'll see if we look around the edges very, very closely, there's no bleed over, there's no spill, my webcam is fitting precisely within the webcam frame. As you can see, using the canvas scaling mode is incredibly helpful for when you need to put something in just the right position or crop.
Oh ya, udah ngerti.
For feature number 2, we have nested scenes. When used effectively, nested scenes can be great for keeping things nice and clean inside of your OBS in terms of scene and source management, but also it can really help speed up editing sources that you'd want to change frequently. This could be alerts, overlays, or webcams, just to name a few. So let's say you wanted to have a supporter bar appear on every single scene in your OBS. A supporter bar is typically a graphic such as this, along with different text sources which explain what the different elements are. So here we have our latest subscriber, our highest bits, and our highest donation. Without nested scenes, what you typically do is you'd copy these sources, and then you go onto every scene where you want them, and paste them in manually, like so. And of course, if ever you wanted to change them, you need to go into every single scene individually and update them all. It's a real pain. Instead, a better way of doing this would be to use a nested scene. So if we create a dedicated scene for our supporter bar and keep all our sources in here, edited and appearing exactly as we want them, when we want these to appear in other scenes, we simply have to nest the scene. So to do that, we would go into a scene where we'd want the supporter bar to appear, then we can add a new source and add a scene. Scroll down on the list and we're going to pick our reference scene of supporter bar, press OK, and there it is. If we want that to appear on other scenes, we simply have to copy it and paste it. And then for any change we want to make, let's say we want to change some text or change the color or whatever we want to do, I'm going to take this highest donation here and say let's make it pink. Now wherever that nested scene appears, the change is automatically visible. So you don't need to go into scenes anymore individually, one by one, updating all your sources. Next up is something that's really handy for creating social media content, as well as creating highlight videos. This is the replay buffer. At the push of a button, you can save
Replay buffer,
seconds
yeah.
of your stream onto your computer as a video. Think of this much like creating a clip on Twitch, only you don't have to specify a title or pick out the start and the end of your clip manually. You just need to go into Settings, Output, Replay Buffer, and press Enable Replay Buffer. Depending how much RAM you have, I'd say set this to about 2 minutes. If you have more RAM, you can set it higher. If you have less RAM, set it less. Take it from me, it's so frustrating when you go through your recordings later, only to find that you've missed off the beginning of some clutch gameplay moment. So if you can, set this higher. We're going to set it here to 120 seconds, and then we'll press Apply. We then need to go into our hotkeys, and then we're going to search for Replay. I'm going to set the save replay to a combination we're not going to hit accidentally. So I find Control, Alt, Shift, and then another button. Works pretty well. So here we'll set it to Control, Alt, Shift, and equals. Of course, we'll want to make sure that our replay buffer is always running when we're streaming. So to do that, we can press Apply, go over to General, and then here we have Automatically Start Replay Buffer when streaming. So we can tick this box, press Apply. Now, whenever you're live, your replay buffer is running. This next feature is a godsend for anyone who makes content out of their stream recordings.
Apa ya, buat apa ya? fungsi replay buffer itu.
Now let's say you have a bunch of stream recordings. It could be full streams or it could just be clips from your replay buffer. And you go to edit it in your favorite video editing software and you find out that MKV files aren't supported. But what are you going to do? Go into OBS and press Remux Recordings. Rather than hunting down some obscure MKV plugin for your video editing software or uploading your entire recording to some sketchy online conversion service, we can use OBS to remix your recording from MKV into MP4. Simply go into File, Remux Recordings, and then pressing this button here, you can select one or multiple files. So here I'm going to go in and select a few different clips I've got, all in MKV format. You press Open, and they'll be added to the list. Once you press Remux, it's going to convert all these files into MP4. If you wanted to as well, you can set it so that OBS will automatically remux any recording it makes. So to do this, we can press OK and close, and then we'll go into our settings. We then go into Advanced, and here we can simply click Remux to MP4 and press Apply. This will work both for entire stream recordings and any recordings made from your replay buffer. Now you may be thinking to yourself, but Danny, I record directly to MP4. I don't use MKVs. What's the point of all this? Well, if you're recording as MP4 and OBS decides to crash, or there's a power cut, or your PC restarts for some unknown reason, your entire video file will be corrupted and unusable. Whereas, if you're using MKV instead and for some reason OBS stops the recording, you'll still have the entire recording of that video up until that point. Everything will be preserved and you won't be losing any more content. Next is something that isn't exactly a secret, but it's definitely underutilized. I'm of course talking about Studio Mode. Studio Mode allows you to make changes to scenes and sources in OBS and preview them without navigating away from the scene you're currently broadcasting. When done well, this can really improve the production quality of your stream. There are lots of reasons you might want to do this, such as adding a new source to the scene you're currently broadcasting, without showing your audience the whole, add new browser source, set the URL, set the width and the height, place it where you want, make sure it all works correctly. It's a whole ugly mess. Alternatively, you might be playing a new game for the very first time and want to make sure that game is being captured correctly by OBS before switching to your gaming scene. If we go down to the Studio Mode button down here in the bottom right, we can press here and you'll see that OBS will split itself in two. This view here on the right is the scene that is currently being broadcast, and on the left is the preview pane for any edits you want to make. Let's say, for instance, we want to show who's currently speaking in Discord at this moment in time. It's a really cool browser source, I'll share it in the description. If we go ahead and right click and go to Add Browser Source, and we'll call it Discord. We then set our URL, along with our width and our height, and then press OK. Once we do, you'll notice that everything up here on the right just looks normal, looks the same as it did before. Over here on the left though, we've got a Danny above me. This is me sat in my own Discord voice channel right now, and it's not being broadcast to my audience, or at least it wouldn't if I was currently live. In order to show this source on our stream, we simply need to press one of these transition buttons here. So transition is your default transition, or you can use a quick transition such as a cut, a fade, or a fade to black, and then when you press that a second time, it'll fade back into the content. We'll just press the ordinary transition here, and you'll see that now, Danny appears live. As I said in the last section, Studio Mode is well known, but just not really well used. One thing you probably haven't heard of though, is Multiview. You can basically think of Multiview like Studio Mode, but the next level of. It's Studio Mode on steroids. To enable Multiview, you simply need to go into View, and then you can choose either full screen or windowed. I'm just going to grab this quickly and drag it over here. And if you are using a single monitor or using it in windowed mode, one thing I would definitely recommend is right-clicking it and pressing always on top. Now, if you don't currently have Studio Mode enabled, clicking on one of these different scenes here will switch to it immediately. However, if you have Studio Mode enabled, you can then pick a scene, edit it as you need, and then press your transition button to switch to that scene. One of the great things about Multiview, besides having live previews of multiple scenes in front of you at all times, is this here, these little safe areas. These give you a representation of what your stream would look like on different devices using different aspect ratios. When you're placing content on your stream, using these is a great way of making sure you're not cutting off important content. Unfortunately, at the time of recording, there is no means of choosing what 8 scenes appear below us. It's just the first 8 scenes that OBS sees. One way we can get around this though is to set a different display type. So if I close this off and we go down into the settings, under the general section, if we scroll all the way to the bottom, we have the multi-view options. So I can change the multi-view layout to one of a variety. I find what works for me quite well is horizontal top 18 scenes. So if we click into this and press OK, once I relaunch multi-view, I shall show you what that looks like. I'll then drag that into the recording preview and just resize it for you. And you can see we have many, many more options available to us in terms of what scenes we can see. So now it's the first 18 in our OBS list. Next up is something that I personally use quite a lot, as someone who both streams and creates content for TikTok and YouTube. This is profiles and scene collections. In a nutshell, a profile is a collection of your settings. This is your streaming settings, including what service you're connected to, your recording location, your bitrate, etc. One thing that a profile doesn't include, though, is your scenes and sources. These instead are saved in a scene collection. One way you might use profiles and scene collections is if you stream to multiple platforms. Perhaps you want to have different settings, different scenes, different sources, depending on where you're streaming to. Or alternatively, maybe stream from a laptop, and when you're at home, you want to use a high bitrate profile, and when you're on the go, use a low bitrate profile. To see your different profiles, you can simply go up to the menu bar here and press Profile. The one you're currently using is probably called Untitled, but we can rename it here by pressing Rename and give it a nicer name if we wanted to. A word of advice though, if you did want to use multiple profiles, it's much quicker to make a duplicate of an existing profile rather than creating a brand new one from scratch. To duplicate your existing profile, you simply need to go into Profile and press Duplicate. To change a profile, you simply need to open up the profile menu and then choose a profile that you're interested in using. For your scene collections, it's much the same process. You simply need to click into Scene Collection, and then you can duplicate as needed, or rename, and if you want to switch to a different scene collection, you can simply press the name of the one you want. One thing that's definitely worth doing though, is backing up your profiles and your scene collections about every 6 to 8 weeks. This is just in case you make a change somewhere down the line and you need to revert it later on. To do this, we can go into Profile, and then press Export. You then simply need to pick a location in which to back up all of your profiles. Once you press Select Folder, individual subfolders for each of your profiles will be created. Sadly, for scene collections, you have to back up each of your collections one by one. To do this, simply go into Scene Collection, and then press Export. Pick the folder you want to save your scene collection to, and then press Save. Then simply repeat the process for each of your scene collections. There is potentially a better way of doing backups though, and that is Portable Mode. Now I mentioned this during my Ultimate OBS Setup guide, but using the portable version of OBS instead of the full installer makes backing up super simple. If you're anything like me, you've updated OBS at some point in the past and gone, oh no, it's broken something. Then you've got to find the older version, reinstall it, make sure your plugin's working. It's a real pain. Instead, if you use the portable version of OBS, when you want to back up, you just back up the entire OBS directory. No more hunting around the file system for all the different locations that OBS likes to save things. Head on over to obsproject.com. Then once the page loads up, we're going to hit this download button here, and then scroll down a little bit and press download zip. Once it's extracted where you want it, simply go into bin, 64-bit, and then we can right click OBS, and we want to press create shortcut. Then we can go down to our shortcut, right click it and press properties. Once this window opens up here, we're going to go to the target, and we're going to go all the way to the end, add a space and type in -- portable. Once you open up the portable version for the first time, you'll see this auto configuration wizard, but actually we're going to go ahead and press cancel on this. The reason being, we're going to import our profiles and our scenes from the backup we just made. One thing to note though is if you backed up your profiles and your scene collections with just the name Untitled, you might have issues importing it here. So to get around that, we can go into Profile, and we'll rename the existing profile to just Old, and do the exact same thing for the scene collections. So go in here, press rename, and just call it Old. You'll see up in the top here, our profile is set to Old and our scenes set to Old. Then we just need to import. So we can press Profile and press Import, and then we just select the directory we backed up our profile to a moment ago. So here I'm going to press Select Folder, and you see the profile up here is still set to Old, so we'll go into Profile and then select Untitled. You'll notice that OBS has changed its layout in order to reflect the changes we have in our old profile, but it doesn't have any scenes. Let's go into our scene collections and import. So go up here, press Import, and you'll get this prompt appear asking if you want to automatically detect any existing scene collections. We're going to press no though, because we're going to select our scenes manually. Simply click this ellipsis here, and we'll select our backups. Here I'm choosing untitled.json, and once I press open, and then press import, it'll add that scene collection to OBS. Once we go to scene collection, and then press untitled, everything is back to normal, and OBS Portable now has the exact same settings and scenes as your full installation of OBS. Finally, a little extra visual source for those who want to make their webcam look a bit more high-end is lookup tables, or LUTs.